Hello, Alejandra, and welcome to today's program. Today we're going to read a story, and first we will start with some idioms which are related to the story. So, nice to see you.
Hello, Lydia. Nice to see you too. Yes.
Right, could you read me the idioms that you see here on this side?
Copycat, catnap, cat got your tongue, curiosity killed the cat, let the cat out of the bag, cat and mouse.
Right. And our viewers can see in the purple diagram the meaning of these idioms. I think we will choose a few of them, but not all of them. So, copycat, someone who does exactly the same as somebody else. For example, once I went to a discotheque and a girl had the same dress as me. So she was a copycat because she was wearing the same dress. Okay. You can choose another one. I will do one more and then you can choose another one. Okay. Catnap. Let me see. Catnap. A short nap or sleep. So a catnap could be 40 winks. It could be a siesta. So there are many ways of saying it. Normally, I try not to have a cat nap in the afternoon because after it, I don't feel so awake. So a cat nap is normally about 15 to 20 minutes. And there are other ways of saying it. So choose another idiom, whichever one you want, which is there.
Curiosity killed the cat.
And it means,
Uh, Being curious can be dangerous.
right. And an example,
Um, hmm, uh, for example, little children mm, shouldn't go to the unknown places, for example.
because curiosity killed the cat, no? So
Yes.
if we are too curious, we could say or they ask a question and we don't want to answer it. And I could say, Alexander, curiosity killed the cat. So it's a polite way of saying, I am not going to answer your question because
Ah,
I
okay.
feel uncomfortable, for example, no? Do the next one and we will finish there for today with the idioms.
Cat and mouse.
Okay.
Uh, it's what is it?
Something to do with if you are like here I can't see the meaning, maybe I put it myself. Cat and mouse is
It's
like when you're
it's on the top. A children's game.
right, a children's game, cat and mouse. And also if you ask me a question and I don't answer you, we could be playing like cat and mouse, no, because we are trying to be um intellectual and not answer somebody else's question if they're not being very discreet, no? So you could ask me something and I could go off in another direction, no? So we could be playing cat and mouse with our conversation, no? Right then, we are going to continue now. And here we're going to talk about the author of our story. So could you read what it says?
No writer knew more about pain and horror than Edgar Allan Poe. He lived most of his life afraid of the things in his own mind, and he wrote some of the most frightening horror stories ever written. He was born Edgar Poe on 19 January
Oh, nine.
1809 in Boston, USA.
Right. So we're starting to talk about the author of our story. When he was 2 years old, his mother died and his father died or left the family because nobody knows exactly what happened to him. Poe went to live with a rich family called the Allens in Richmond, Virginia. Mrs. Allen loved him like a real son, but her husband never understood Poe and was unkind to him. So I think as he was left an orphan, this would have been a trauma for him, and this could have affected the way he wrote his stories. The family moved to England 5 years from 1815 to 1820, and Poe went to one of the best schools in the country. In 1826, he went back to Virginia and went to university there. But when he was a student there, his life started to go badly wrong. So he wasn't very happy. John Allen refused to pay for his university education because the boy was spending too much money. This hurt Poe very deeply. The dislike between him and John Allen grew, and in 1827 he left the Allen's home forever. So, because of money, and he didn't do exactly what his stepfather wanted him to do, they didn't have a good relationship. Okay, now your turn.
Poe became a successful soldier for a few years and then went to Baltimore to earn money by writing for newspapers and magazines. He also worked on a magazine in Richmond, Virginia, but he didn't go back to his old home. In 1835, when Poe was 26, he married his young cousin, Virginia Clem, who was 14 years old. Well, their married life together was difficult. Poe worked hard, but he didn't earn much money and never stayed long in one job. He was a nervous man. He drank too much all his life, and he believed that he was mad.
Right. So, a person who had a lot of mental problems and also his wife being so young wouldn't have helped either. In 1847, Virginia died after a long illness. Poe's home life ended and he began to drink more than before. In September 1849, he disappeared and was later found in a street in Baltimore. He was taken to hospital where he died on the 7th of October 1849. He was buried in Baltimore next to his wife. However, he never made any money from his writing when he was alive. Since his death, Poe has become one of the most famous of all American writers. His story and poems are now read by people all over the world. Poe had a strange imagination and one of the saddest lives in all of literature. His terrible stories touch our deepest human fears and our difficulty to forget. So, this is setting the stage for the story we are going to read. And the name of our story, what is it, Alexander?
The Black Cat.
Right. So, we have learned a little bit about the author, and now we're going to read the story. So, off you go.
How can I explain this fear? It wasn't really a fear or something evil, but then how else can I possibly describe it? Slowly, the strange fear grew into horror. Yes, horror. If I tell you why, you will not believe me. You will think I am mad. The Black Cat is one of Edgar Allan Poe's most famous stories. Why is the man in the story afraid of his own black cat? Why does he kill it? And how does the cat punish him for his evil ways?
So, they've set the scene for what we are going to come. Now, this we imagine is the main character of the story, and he sat at his desk and he's writing something. Okay?
Yeah.
You are not going to believe this story, but it's a true story. As true as I sit here writing it, as true as I will die in the morning. Yes, this story ends with my end, with my death tomorrow. I have always been a kind and loving person. Everyone will tell you this. They will also tell you that I have always loved animals more than anything. When I was a little boy, my family always had many animals round the house. As I grew up, I spent most of my time with them, giving them their food and cleaning them. I married when I was very young, and I was happy to find that my wife loved all of our animal friends as much as I did. She bought us the most beautiful animals. We had all sorts of birds, goldfish, a fine dog, and a cat. The cat was a large and beautiful animal. It was black, black all over, and very intelligent. It was so intelligent that my wife often laughed about what some people believe. Some people believe that all black cats are evil, enemies in cats' bodies. Right, so let's see what happens next. Oops, I changed it too quickly there. Sorry. Now it's your turn.
Okay. I remember that night very well. I came home late, full of drink again. I couldn't understand why Pluto was not pleased to see me. The cat was staying away from me. My Pluto didn't want to come near me. I caught him and picked him up, holding him strongly. He was afraid of me and bit my hand. Suddenly, I wasn't myself anymore. Someone else was in my body, someone evil and mad with drink. I took my knife from my pocket, held the poor animal by his neck, and cut out one of his eyes.
The next morning, my mind was full of pain and horror when I woke up. I was deeply sorry. I could not understand how could do such an evil thing, but drink soon helped me to forget. Slowly, the cat got better. Soon, he felt no more pain. There was now only an ugly dry hole where the eye was once. He began to go round the house as usual again. He never came near me now, of course, and he ran away when I went too close. I knew he didn't love me anymore. At first, I was sad. Then, slowly, I started to feel angry, and I did another terrible thing. I had to do it. I could not stop myself. I did it with a terrible sadness in my heart because I knew it was evil. And that was why I did it. Yes, I did it because I knew it was evil. What did I do? I caught the cat and hung him by his neck from a tree until he was dead.
That night I woke up suddenly. My bed was on fire. I heard people outside shouting, "Fire! Fire!" Our house was burning. I, my wife, and our servant were lucky to escape. We stood and watched as the house burned down to the ground. There was nothing left of the building the next morning. All the walls fell down during the night, except one, a wall in the middle of the house. I realized why this wall didn't burn. Because there was new plaster on it. The plaster was still quite wet. I was surprised to see a crowd of people next to the wall. They were talking and seemed to be quite excited. I went closer and looked over their shoulders. I saw a black shape in the new white plaster. It was the shape of a large cat hanging by its neck.
Right. For our viewers, I will just explain this word here, plaster. It's like the white cement that we put on the wall. So if you
Mhm.
imagine a wall, if it had a hole, to fill the hole, you would put some white cement, which is called plaster, just to make a
Okay.
clarification there.
Mm.
I looked at the shape with complete horror. Several minutes passed before I could think clearly again. I knew I had to think clearly. I had to know why it was there. I remembered hanging the cat in the garden of the house next door. During the fire, the garden was full of people. Probably someone cut the dead cat from the tree and threw it through the window to try and wake me. The falling walls pressed the animal's body into fresh plaster. The cat burned completely, leaving the black shape in the new plaster. Yes, I was sure that was what happened, but I could not forget that black shape for months. I even saw it in my dreams. I began to feel sad about losing the animal. So I began to look for another one. I looked mostly in the poor part of our town where I went drinking. I searched for another black cat of the same size and type as Pluto. So here we see a picture of the cat hanging from the plastic. Well, not hanging from the plastic. He's like embedded in the plaster.
The shadow, yes,
Yes.
like a
So I
shadow.
thought he was hanging from the tree at the moment because I saw this, but this is after. And it's the mark or the image of the cat in the fresh plaster on the wall. And of course, if he's been drinking, he can't remember everything.
Yeah.
Now, here we have a few more idioms related to our story today. Just give me a second and I will make it. So if you can read this first one.
He is the black sheep of the family. Really means he is considered to be a bad person by the rest of the family.
So while I read the other ones, you can think of an example of that one. Okay, so that's for you. And some other ones related to black are pitch black, completely dark or black. The town turned pitch black when the lights went out. So if it's very dark, we say, oh, look, it's pitch black inside the house because there are no lights on. Black market, illegal trade. There was a thriving black market of cigarettes on the island. So I don't know if the black market exists now. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But many years ago, in maybe the poorer countries, if you wanted something, food or clothes, you could buy it on the black market.
Yes.
And the last one, blackout, to faint or to become unconscious. The cause of the accident is probably the truck driver who blacked out at the wheel. Another example of blackout, for example, I remember my sister, if she didn't eat breakfast in the morning, she used to black out and faint and fall on the floor because she hadn't eaten, right? So sometimes you can become dizzy
Mhm.
and your vision blacks out and you fall to the floor. So that's to black out. Now, you have to give me an example with black sheep. Can you give me an example?
Oh, I don't know. He was the family was very healthy, but he was a black sheep because he was an alcoholic.
Right. So the family could be rich and wealthy, but he was considered to be the black sheep of the family because he was an alcoholic, right? Sometimes we call people the black sheep of the family if they don't do what is expected of them. Right. Let's continue with our story. Off you go.
One night, as I sat in a dark and dirty drinking house, I noticed a black object on top of a cupboard near some bottles of wine. I was surprised when I saw it. I looked at those bottles a few minutes ago, I thought, and I'm sure that object wasn't there before. I got up and went to see what it was. I put my hand up, touched it, and found that it was a black cat, a very large one, as large as Pluto. He looked like Pluto too, in every way but one. Pluto didn't have a white hair anywhere on his body. This cat had a large white shape on his front. He got up when I touched him and pressed the side of his head against my hand several times. He liked me. This was the animal I was looking for. He continued to be very friendly, and later, when I left, he followed me into the street. He came all the way home with me. We now had another house and came inside. He immediately jumped up on the most comfortable chair and went to sleep. He stayed with us, of course. He loved both of us, and very soon he became my wife's favorite animal.
So we have someone now to replace the other cat that he cruelly killed, no? The old Pluto. But as the weeks passed, I began to dislike the animal more and more. I do not know why, but I hated the way he loved me. Soon I began to hate him, but I was never unkind to him. Yes, I was very careful about that. I kept away from him because I remembered what I did to my poor Pluto. I also hated the animal because he had one eye. I noticed this the morning after he came home with me. Of course, this was only made my dear wife love him more. But the more I hated the cat, the more he seemed to love me. He followed me everywhere, getting under my feet all the time. Then I sat down. He always sat under my chair. Often he tried to jump up on my knees. I wanted to murder him when he did this, but I did not. I stopped myself because I remembered Pluto, but also because I was afraid of the animal. So he has a lot of mental problems, maybe because of the drink, no?
Yes, yes, maybe. How can I explain this fear? It was not really a fear or something evil, but then how else can I possibly describe it? Slowly, the strange fear grew into horror. Yes, horror. If I tell you why, you will not believe me. You will think I am mad. Several times, my wife took the cat and showed me the white shape of his chest. She said the shape was slowly changing. For a long time, I didn't believe her, but slowly, after many weeks, I began to see that she was right. The shape was changing. Its sides were becoming straighter and straighter. It was beginning to look more and more like an object. After a few more weeks, I saw what the shape was. It was impossible not to see. There, on his front, was the shape of an object. I'm almost too afraid to name it. It
There on the cat's front was that terrible machine of pain and death, the gallows. Now, the gallows is something that was made of wood. It had a piece at the top and then coming down, and it's where they used to hang people, the gallows, right?
I think
So it was like that, if we can
I think
imagine it.
another name is a gallows pole. Is it like a song,
Maybe
gallows pole? Yeah.
we call it hangerman when we played the game, hangerman. So
Mhm.
it's one piece of wood, which is the base, then one across, and then normally a piece of string. No, string, no, it's too fine that. A rope to tie the
Rope.
neck of the person around it. So the gallows. Now, as he hanged his first cat, which was Pluto, by the neck from a tree, so now he can see this, the gallows. It was that terrible machine of pain. Yes, the gallows. I no longer knew the meaning of happiness or rest. During the day, the animal never left me. At night, he woke me up nearly every hour. I remember walking from terrible dream. Sorry, I remember waking from terrible dreams and feeling him sitting next to my face, his heavy body pressing down on my heart. 1 minute. I was now a very different man. There was not the smallest piece of good left in me. I now had only evil thoughts, the darkest and the most evil thoughts. I hated everyone and everything, my dear wife too. So he was obsessed maybe now. And as he saw this impression on the cat's face, it kept reminding him of all the bad he had done, the evil. So here we can see a good picture of the gallows, more or less, no? The top piece
Yeah.
here, the main piece there, and it's reminding him of what he did.
One day she came down into the cellar with me to cut some wood. We were now too poor to have a servant. Of course, the cat followed me down the stairs and nearly made me fall. This made me so angry that I took the axe and tried to cut the animal in two. But as I brought the axe down, my wife stopped my arm with her hand. This made me even more angry, and I pulled her hand away from my wrist, lifted the tool again, brought it down hard, and buried it in the top of her head.
1 minute. So the wrist is this part of your arm, right? This is the wrist.
Yes.
So she's trying to protect the animal from her evil husband. So he gets hold of her wrist to stop her, but it's in vain because then he brought the axe to her head and buried it in her head. Okay, now you can continue.
I had to hide the body. I knew I could not take it out of the house. The neighbors noticed everything. I thought of cutting it into pieces and burning it. I thought of burning it in the floor of the cellar. I thought of throwing it into the river at the end of the garden. I thought of putting it into a wooden box and taking it out of the house that way. In the end, I decided to hide the body in one of the walls of the cellar.
So he had to think of a way of getting rid of the body as he knew that his neighbors would be watching him. So here we can see in the picture the axe and his wife trying to protect the cat from her mad husband. So this is called an axe. It was quite an old building near the river, so the wall of the cellars were quite wet and the plaster was soft. There was new plaster on one of the walls, and I knew that underneath it, the wall was not very strong. I also knew that this wall was very thick. I could hide the body in the middle of it. It was not difficult. I took off some plaster, took out a few stones, and made a hole in the earth that filled the middle of the wall. I put my wife there, put back the stone, made some new plaster, and put it on the wall. Then I cleaned the floor and looked carefully round. Everything looked just as it did before. Nobody would ever know. Next, I went upstairs to kill the cat. The animal was bringing me bad luck. I had to kill it. I searched everywhere, but I could not find him. I was sure it was because my wife's murder. He was too clever to come near me now.
I waited all evening, but I didn't see the evil animal. He did not come back during the night either, and so for the first time in a long time I slept well. When I woke up the next morning, I was surprised to see that the cat still wasn't there. 2, 3 days passed and there was still no cat. I cannot tell you how happy I began to feel. I felt so much better without the cat. Yes, it was he who brought me all my unhappiness. And now, without him, I began to feel like a free man again. It was wonderful. No more cat, never again. Several people came and asked about my wife, but I answered their questions easily. Then, on the fourth day, the police came. I was not worried when they searched the house. They asked me to come with them as they searched. They looked everywhere several times. Then they went down into the cellar. I went down with them, of course. I was not a bit afraid. I walked calmly up and down, watching them search.
They found nothing, of course, and soon they were ready to go. I was so happy that I could not stop talking as they went up the stairs. I did not really know what I was saying. Good day to you all, dear sirs, I said. Yes, this is a well-built old house, isn't it? Yes, a very well-built old house. These walls, are you going, gentlemen? These walls are strong, aren't they? I knocked hard on the part of the wall where my wife was. A voice came from inside the wall in answer to my knock. It was a cry like a child's. Quickly, it grew into a long screaming pain of horror. I saw the policemen standing on the stairs with their mouths open. Suddenly, they all ran down in a great hurry and began breaking down the wall. It fell quickly, and there was my wife, standing inside. There she was, with dried blood all over her head, looking at them. And there was the cat, standing on her head, the red mouth wide open in a scream, and his one gold eye shining like fire. The clever animal. My wife was dead because of him, and now his evil voice was sending me to the gallows. So this is what we can see, the wife dead in the hole in the wall, and the cat coming to get its revenge. So that was the end of the story, believe it or not. When the police found the body of his wife, because he was so happy, he didn't realize that he was giving away the story and giving away the evidence to the police. So he got so overwhelmed. Well, did you like the story?
Yes, amazing story, classical story. I think it is a base for many movies and stories in the future after this
Yes.
story.
Well, we have to remind our viewers that this is a graded reader. So it's a very short version, even though it's a short story, and its vocabulary is designed to help beginners understand the story. Well, we need to say goodbye to our next time. Okay, Alexander,
Okay,
see you.
see you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.